The advertisement in the Santa Fe Gazette trembled between Zara Zimmerman's fingers as she sat in the dusty corner of the general store, her breath catching when she read the response that arrived not to her request for employment, but to something far more unexpected. She had placed her notice 3 weeks prior in September of 1878, desperately seeking work as a housekeeper or cook anywhere in New Mexico territory. At 22 years old, Zara found herself alone after her father succumbed to pneumonia and creditors seized their small homestead outside Santa Fe. The advertisement had been her last hope, written in careful script and paid for with nearly the last coin she possessed. She had received 2 responses, both from establishments of questionable reputation that made her stomach turn. But the 3rd letter, arriving this morning via the westbound stage, came from a place called Hatchita in the southwestern corner of the territory. "Dear Miss Zimmerman," it began in bold, confident handwriting, "I read your advertisement seeking employment with great interest. I am a rancher in need of help, but not the kind you advertised for. I need a partner to build something lasting here on the frontier. If you have courage to match your evident need, come to Hatchita and meet me. I will provide separate accommodations while you decide if this partnership suits you. Travel fare enclosed. Respectfully, Nathan Barrett." Inside the envelope were $20 in bills and a hand-drawn map showing the route from Santa Fe to Hatchita. Zara read the letter 3 more times, her practical mind wrestling with her desperate circumstances. A partnership. Not employment, not charity, but partnership. The word struck something deep within her, something that had been dormant since her mother died when Zara was 15, leaving her to care for her increasingly ill father. The storekeeper, Mrs. Henderson, peered over her spectacles. "You look like you have seen a ghost, dear." "I might have seen an opportunity instead," Zara murmured, folding the letter carefully. "Do you know anything about Hatchita?" Mrs. Henderson wiped her hands on her apron. "Small settlement, maybe 2 days southwest by stage. Rough country, but honest people trying to make a go of it. Why do you ask? I might be heading there." The older woman studied her with knowing eyes, running towards something or away from something. Both, I suppose. 3 days later, Zara boarded the southbound stage with everything she owned packed into 2 carpet bags. Her best dress, dark blue with modest trim, was carefully folded on top. Beneath it lay her mother's Bible, her father's pocket watch, 2 other serviceable dresses, undergarments, a warm shawl, and the few pieces of jewelry she could not bear to sell. The money Nathan Barrett had sent covered her passage with enough left over for a meal or 2. The stage rattled through high desert country, past mesas painted in shades of rust and gold, through valleys where cottonwoods clustered along seasonal streams. 2 other passengers shared the cramped space, a mining engineer heading to Silver City and a drummer selling farm equipment. The drummer tried engaging her in conversation until Zara's cool politeness made him abandon the effort. As the miles passed, doubt crept into her thoughts. What did she truly know about Nathan Barrett? Nothing except what his letter revealed. He was literate, he had a ranch, and he proposed something highly unconventional. Partnership could mean many things. Perhaps he sought a business partner, someone to invest money she did not have. Perhaps he sought something else entirely, something she would not provide outside marriage. The ambiguity of his offer troubled her, yet she continued south, because the alternative was staying in Santa Fe with no prospects and diminishing funds. The stage stopped overnight at a way station, where Zara paid 50 cents for a bed in a room shared with 3 other women travelers. She slept poorly, listening to coyotes howling in the darkness and wondering if she was making the worst decision of her life. Hachita appeared on the horizon just after noon on the second day. The settlement was smaller than she expected, perhaps 24 buildings scattered along a dusty main street. The Atchison, Topeka and Santa Fe Railway had recently extended tracks through here, and the depot stood as the newest structure, its yellow paint still bright against the weathered gray wood of older establishments. A general store, a saloon, a blacksmith, a tiny church, and various houses comprised the town. Beyond stretched endless grassland punctuated by distant mountains. The stage driver helped her down and set her bags in the dirt. "Someone meeting you, miss?" "I hope so." Zara straightened her traveling dress and looked around. Several people moved about their business, but no one approached. "Barrett Place is about 5 miles north," offered the driver. "If no one comes for you, Tom at the stable might give you a ride for $1. "Thank you." She moved her bags to the general store's shaded porch and sat on a bench to wait, acutely aware of curious glances from passers-by. 15 minutes passed, then 30. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and she was considering asking directions to the stable when a wagon rolled down the street, pulled by 2 sturdy horses. The man driving was not what she expected. Nathan Barrett appeared to be in his late 20s, tall and lean with sun-darkened skin and brown hair that needed cutting. He wore work clothes, dusty from travel, and his face bore the weathered look of someone who spent his days outdoors. But his eyes, when they found hers, were startlingly blue and direct. He pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down with easy grace. "Miss Zimmerman?" "Yes, Mr. Barrett." "Nathan, please." He removed his hat, revealing more of that unruly brown hair. "I apologize for not meeting your stage. Had a fence break this morning and 3 horses got out. Took longer than expected to round them up." Something in his straightforward manner eased a fraction of her tension. "I understand. Ranch work is unpredictable. You know ranching. My father had a small homestead. We kept livestock." She did not mention how small or how they had struggled. Nathan loaded her bags into the wagon bed with care, then offered his hand to help her onto the bench seat. His grip was strong and calloused but surprisingly gentle. He climbed up beside her and started the horses moving at a steady pace north out of town. For several minutes, neither spoke. Zara studied the landscape, the endless rolling grassland dotted with scrub and the mountains standing like sentinels in the distance. The air smelled of dust and sage and something indefinable that spoke of vast spaces. "I suppose you have questions," Nathan said finally. "Many. I will try to answer them honestly." He kept his eyes on the trail ahead. "My ranch is 300 acres, most of it good grazing land. I have about 50 head of cattle and a dozen horses. Been here 3 years building it up from nothing. I have a house, a barn, corrals, and a decent well. It is not much compared to some spreads, but it is mine clear and outright. And you need a partner because—" Zara kept her voice neutral. "Because I am one man trying to do work that needs 2 or 3. Because having land and livestock is not the same as building something lasting. Because I am tired of working myself to exhaustion with no one to share the successes or help weather the failures." He glanced at her, and she saw no guile in his expression. "I advertised for a wife 6 months back. Got 3 responses. One woman took my money and never showed up. Another arrived, took one look at the place, and caught the next stage back to civilization. The third stayed 2 weeks before admitting she had left a husband in Texas and was running from the law." Despite herself, Zara felt a small smile tug at her lips. "That sounds unfortunate." "It was educational," Nathan said dryly. "Made me realize I was going about it wrong. Advertising for a wife is like advertising for a brood mare. It reduces everything to a transaction with expectations nobody can meet. So when I saw your advertisement, I thought perhaps starting with partnership might be more honest. Partnership in what sense? In every sense, eventually, if we suit each other. But I am not asking you to decide that today or even this month. I built a small cabin about 100 yards from the main house. It was meant for hired help, but it will give you privacy and independence while we figure out if we can work together. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I need help running the ranch. You need a place to be and work that pays. We can start there and see where it leads. And if it leads nowhere, then I will pay you wages for the work you do and help you get wherever you want to go next. I will put that in writing if you want. Zara considered this. It was far more generous than she had any right to expect, yet something in Nathan's manner suggested he was not motivated by generosity alone. He was lonely, she realized. Lonely and tired and hoping she might be an answer to a problem he could not solve by himself. What kind of work are you expecting? Can you cook? Yes. Handle livestock. I have done so. Ride. Adequately. Then I expect we will figure out the details as we go. Some days might be cooking and mending. Other days might be riding fence lines or helping with the horses. The work changes with the seasons. He gestured at the landscape. It is not easy out here, and it is not particularly comfortable, but it is honest work on land that feels like the edge of the world in the best way. There was something in the way he said it that resonated with Zara. She had grown up on the edge of things, always struggling, always barely holding on. But Nathan spoke of the edge differently, as though it were a place of possibility rather than desperation. The ranch came into view as they topped a rise. The house was larger than Zara expected, built of adobe with a wooden porch across the front. It was simple but solid-looking, with windows that caught the afternoon light. The barn stood behind it, also adobe with a split-rail corral attached. She could see cattle grazing in the distance and horses in the near pasture. Everything looked well-maintained if sparse. Nathan pointed to a smaller structure set apart from the main house. That is the cabin I mentioned. It has a bed, a stove, a table, and a chair. Not much, but it is clean and secure. He pulled the wagon up in front of the cabin and helped her down. The building was indeed small, just one room, but when Nathan opened the door, she saw he had not exaggerated. A narrow bed stood against one wall with clean blankets folded at the foot. A small cast iron stove occupied one corner with a neat stack of firewood beside it. A simple table and chair sat beneath the single window, and pegs on the wall provided places to hang clothes. A lantern hung from a ceiling beam, and a wash basin sat on a shelf near the door. It is not fancy, Nathan said, sounding almost apologetic. It is more than adequate. Zara set down her carpetbags and turned to face him. When do I start work? Something that might have been relief crossed his face. You are staying then. I have come this far. I might as well see if this partnership you propose has merit. Tomorrow is soon enough to start. Today you should settle in and rest from traveling. I will bring you some supplies, food, water, whatever you need. Main house has a better kitchen, and you are welcome to use it any time. I usually eat breakfast just after sunrise and dinner around sunset. You can join me or not as you prefer while you are getting your bearings. I will join you. If we are to be partners, we should probably become acquainted. Nathan nodded and moved toward the door, then paused. Miss Zimmerman, I know this situation is unusual. I know you are taking a risk coming out here to work with a stranger. I want you to know I meant what I said in my letter. I am looking for a partner, someone to build something with. I am not looking to take advantage of anyone's difficult circumstances. I appreciate that, Mr. Barrett. Nathan, he corrected gently. Nathan, she agreed, And you may call me Zara. Zara. He tested the name and smiled slightly. It suits you. I will bring those supplies over shortly and let you rest. After he left, Zara sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself a long breath. The cabin smelled of sage and clean wood. Through the window, she could see the mountains in the distance, purple and blue against the afternoon sky. The silence was profound after the rattle and noise of the stage journey. She unpacked her bags methodically, hanging her dresses on the wall pegs and setting her personal items on the table. Her mother's Bible went on the small shelf beside the bed, along with her father's watch. These tangible connections to her past seemed important to establish in this new space. Nathan returned an hour later with a crate of supplies: flour, coffee, beans, salt pork, dried apples, potatoes, and eggs carefully packed in straw. He also brought a bucket of fresh water from the well and a larger pot for heating water on the stove. "If you need anything else, just say so," he told her. "I know the first night in a new place can be strange." "I will be fine, thank you." He lingered a moment as though wanting to say something more, then simply touched his hat brim and left. Zara prepared a simple meal of beans and cornbread on the small stove as the sun set. She ate at the table, watching darkness settle over the ranch through her window. Lamplight glowed in the main house, and she wondered what Nathan was doing there alone. Reading perhaps, or mending tack, or simply sitting with his own thoughts about the woman who had arrived to possibly become his partner. She washed her dishes and prepared for bed, pulling on her nightgown and letting down her honey-brown hair from its traveling pins. As she lay in the narrow bed, she felt the strangeness of her situation settle over her. 3 days ago, she had been in Santa Fe facing an uncertain future. Now she was on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, employed or partnered or something in between with a man she had just met. Yet despite the strangeness, she felt something she had not experienced in months: possibility. Nathan Barrett seemed honest and direct, and his offer, while unconventional, provided her with options she had not possessed before. Whether this partnership evolved into something more or remained a working arrangement, she had a place to be and work that mattered. For now, that was enough. Sleep came easier than she expected. The next morning, Zara woke to pre-dawn light and the sound of roosters crowing. She dressed in her most practical dress, a brown calico that had seen considerable wear, and twisted her hair into a simple bun. She made coffee on her stove and drank a cup while watching the sun rise over the distant mountains, painting the grasslands in shades of gold and amber. At the main house, she knocked on the door frame. Nathan called for her to enter, and she found him at the kitchen table with his own cup of coffee, studying what looked like a ledger book. "Good morning," she said. "Morning. Coffee? I had some, thank you. What needs doing today?" Nathan closed the ledger and gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit a minute. We should probably discuss how this will work." Zara sat, folding her hands in her lap. In the morning light, Nathan looked tired, and she wondered if he had slept any better than she had. "I have been thinking about what makes sense," he said. "The horses need work, daily training and exercise. Several are green-broke and need consistent handling. There is fence that needs riding and repairs. Garden needs tending before the frost comes. General maintenance on buildings. And then all the regular things like cooking and cleaning, though I can handle my own cooking if you prefer working outside." "What would help you most?" He seemed surprised by the question. "Honestly, help with the horses. I have 3 two-year-olds that need more time than I can give them while managing everything else. If you can really ride, that would make a significant difference." "I can ride." "Then let us start there. After breakfast, I will show you around properly, introduce you to the stock, and we will see how you do with one of the younger horses." Zara prepared breakfast while Nathan finished his bookkeeping. She found the kitchen well stocked if somewhat disorganized. She made biscuits, fried eggs, and bacon, and when she set the plates on the table, Nathan looked at the meal with something like wonder. "I have been eating my own cooking for 3 years," he said. "This looks like a feast. It is just breakfast. To you, maybe." He bowed his head briefly before eating, and she appreciated that small show of faith. They ate in companionable silence, broken occasionally by practical conversation about the ranch. Afterward, Nathan gave her a proper tour. The barn housed 4 stalls, currently occupied by his best horses. A tack room held saddles, bridles, and other equipment, all well maintained. The corrals held the younger horses and a few older mares. He introduced her to each animal by name, explaining their lineage and temperament. It was clear he knew his stock well and cared about their welfare. "That one is Copper," he said, pointing to a bright sorrel gelding with a white blaze. 2 years old, good-natured but flighty. Needs desensitizing work and consistent riding. Think you can handle him?" Zara studied the horse. "I can try." Nathan fetched a rope halter and entered the corral. Copper watched him approach but did not flee. Nathan caught him easily and led him to the round pen adjacent to the barn. Zara followed, and Nathan handed her the lead rope. "Show me what you can do." Zara took the rope and approached Copper slowly, letting the horse smell her hand before stroking his neck. He was tall, probably 15 hands, with the nervous energy of a young horse that had not yet learned to trust fully. She checked him over, running her hands down his legs, picking up his feet, getting a sense of his tolerance for handling. Copper shifted and danced but did not try to pull away. "Someone has done basic work with him," she said. "I did what I could, but he needs more." She worked with Copper for the next hour, doing groundwork exercises Nathan had clearly started but not finished. The horse responded well to consistent direction, and by the end of the session, he was following her lead changes and stopping on command. She was brushing him down when Nathan spoke from where he had been watching silently. "You have done this before. My father bought green horses because they were cheap. I learned to train them so we could sell them for profit." She paused in her brushing. "It was the only way we made enough to get through some winters. You are good at it." "Thank you." Nathan opened the gate for her, and they returned Copper to the corral. "If you are willing, I would like you to work with him and the other 2 young ones. An hour or 2 each day would make a real difference. The rest of the time, we can split the other work as makes sense." "That sounds fair." They spent the rest of the morning riding fence along the northern boundary. Nathan provided her with a steady older mare named Daisy, and they covered several miles, stopping occasionally to repair brakes or tighten wire. The work was hot and dirty, but Zara found she did not mind. There was something satisfying about the physical labor and the vast openness of the land. Over the following days, a routine established itself. Zara woke early and prepared breakfast at the main house. She and Nathan ate together while discussing the day's priorities. She worked with the young horses each morning, then joined Nathan for whatever other work needed doing: riding fence, moving cattle, repairing buildings, tending the small garden behind the house. In the evenings, she prepared dinner, and they ate together again, their conversation gradually moving beyond just ranch business. She learned that Nathan had come from Missouri, the youngest of 4 brothers. His family had been farmers, but with 3 older brothers to inherit the family land, Nathan had headed west at 19 to find his own place. He had worked as a ranch hand for several years, saving every penny, before finding this land and filing a claim. The past 3 years had been spent building everything from scratch, often working alone from dawn until long after dark. Some days I wonder if I am crazy trying to do this by myself, he admitted one evening over dinner. Most successful ranchers have families or partners. One man alone can only do so much. You have done well for one man alone, Zara said, looking around the solid house, thinking of the well-maintained stock and equipment. Maybe, but it is not enough just to survive. I want to build something that lasts, something that matters. Zara understood that desire more than she could easily express. Her own life had been a series of struggles just to survive, with little time for building anything lasting. What would that look like to you? Nathan considered the question. A larger herd, maybe 200 head. Enough horses to start a real breeding program. I think there is a market for well-trained cow ponies. Maybe some sheep too, though cattlemen around here do not look kindly on sheep. Improvements to the land, better water sources, more fencing, and eventually, a family to leave it all to. Children who can grow up with space to run and work, that matters. That is a substantial vision. Probably too substantial, he said with a self-deprecating smile. But if you are going to work yourself to exhaustion, might as well be for something worthwhile. Zara found herself sharing more about her own past than she had intended. She told Nathan about her mother's death, about her father's long illness, about the struggle to keep their small homestead going until it finally failed. She spoke of the creditors who had taken everything, leaving her with nothing but her carpetbags and no clear path forward. That must have been terrifying, Nathan said quietly. It was, but also clarifying in a strange way. When you lose everything, you realize what actually matters. I thought I wanted security and stability, and I do, but I also realized I wanted work that meant something. I wanted to build rather than just survive. Their eyes met across the table, and something passed between them, recognition perhaps, of two people who understood each other's deepest desires in a way that required no further explanation. The weeks passed in steady work and growing companionship. Zara continued training the young horses, and Nathan began taking them on short rides outside the corrals, pleased with their progress. Together, they moved the cattle to fresh grazing areas and spent 2 long days helping a neighboring rancher with his roundup, earning goodwill in the small community. Zara met other settlers during a Sunday service at the tiny Hachita church. The congregation numbered perhaps 20 people, ranchers and their families, the storekeeper, the railroad agent, and a few others. Several women approached Zara with curiosity, and she found herself explaining her presence carefully, describing herself as Nathan's hired help rather than anything else. Mrs. Cooper, wife of the neighboring rancher they had helped, studied Zara with shrewd eyes. Hired help that lives in the guest cabin and eats meals with the boss. Unusual arrangement. It is mutually beneficial, Zara said evenly. I am sure it is, dear. Nathan is a good man, decent and hardworking. He deserves someone who sees his worth. I do see his worth. Good. Then perhaps you will stick around longer than the others. Mrs. Cooper patted her arm and moved away, leaving Zara wondering just what the others had been told about her presence. That evening she mentioned the conversation to Nathan. People are talking. They are making assumptions. Nathan nodded slowly. I expected they might. Does it bother you? Should it bother me? Only if their opinions matter more to you than the truth of the situation. We know what this arrangement is. If you want me to explain things differently to people, I will. What would you say? The truth. That you are helping me build this ranch as a partner, and we are both waiting to see if that partnership grows into something more. His directness still surprised her. You think it might? I think it already has. Nathan set down his coffee cup and looked at her fully. Zara, I have been alone here a long time. I got used to silence and solitude. But these past weeks with you here, sharing meals and work, talking about everything and nothing, it has reminded me what I was really missing. Not just help with the ranch, but companionship. Someone who understands what I am trying to build and wants to build it too. I am not sure I am that person, Zara said carefully. I am still figuring out what I want. I know. I am not asking you to decide anything tonight or even this month. But I wanted you to know that if you are willing, I would like this partnership to become more than just working together. Zara's heart beat faster. You are speaking of marriage. Eventually, yes, if we suit each other, if you find you want the same things I want. He paused, then added, I know this is not exactly a romantic proposal. I am not offering moonlight and poetry. But I am offering something real, a life we would build together, a partnership in every sense. Let me think about it, Zara said quietly. Take all the time you need. That night, Zara lay awake in her cabin, thinking about Nathan's words. He was right that their partnership had grown beyond just working together. She looked forward to their meals together, to their long conversations in the evenings, to the comfortable silence that had developed between them during long days of hard work. He was kind without being soft, strong without being domineering, honest in a way that made her feel safe. But marriage was a permanent commitment, and she had seen enough bad marriages to be cautious. Her parents had loved each other, but their life had been hard, filled with struggle and disappointment. Could she build something better with Nathan? Or would this ranch eventually grind them down the same way the homestead had destroyed her parents? Yet as October arrived and the weather began to cool, Zara realized her thoughts had shifted from whether she could build a life here to how that life might look. She found herself noticing things about Nathan she had not registered before. The careful way he handled even the most difficult horses, the unexpected tenderness when he found an injured rabbit and spent an evening splinting its leg, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled at something she said. They were working together one afternoon, digging post holes for a new corral section, when Nathan suddenly stopped and looked at her. "What?" she asked, self-conscious under his gaze. "Just thinking that I am glad you came. However this turns out, I am glad you took the risk." "I am glad too," she admitted. The weather turned colder, and Zara moved most of her activities to the main house, spending evenings mending clothes or reading while Nathan worked on tack or studied breeding journals. The domesticity felt natural, comfortable in a way she had not experienced since before her mother died. Sometimes Nathan would read passages aloud from his journals, and they would discuss bloodlines and training methods. Other times, they simply sat in companionable silence, both absorbed in their own tasks but drawing comfort from the other's presence. One November evening, a storm rolled in with startling speed. Rain lashed the windows and wind howled around the house. Zara had been planning to return to her cabin, but Nathan shook his head when she moved toward the door. "Too rough out there. You can take my bed and I will sleep out here." "I cannot take your bed." "Yes, you can. I have slept in worse places than a comfortable chair." He was already fetching blankets and a pillow. The bedroom was small but neat, with a large bed covered in a patchwork quilt. Zara changed into her nightgown and crawled under the covers, feeling strange about sleeping in Nathan's bed while he spent an uncomfortable night in the front room. But when she suggested switching again, he refused. "I am the one who invited you here," he said through the door. "I will provide proper hospitality even if that means sleeping in a chair." She woke in the night to hear him moving around. The storm had subsided, but rain still fell steadily. She got up and found him stoking the fire, his hair disheveled and his face creased from trying to sleep awkwardly in the chair. "You look miserable," she said. "I have been more comfortable," he admitted. The bed is large enough for 2 people if we maintain proper decorum." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "Zara, that would not be proper. Neither is forcing you to sleep in a chair while I occupy your bed. We are both adults. I think we can share sleeping space without impropriety." She said it more confidently than she felt, but she meant it. The thought of Nathan suffering through the night while she slept comfortably bothered her. After a long moment, Nathan nodded. "All right, but I will stay on top of the covers." They settled into the bed with careful space between them, both lying stiffly on their backs. The awkwardness lasted perhaps 5 minutes before exhaustion claimed them both. Zara woke once more before dawn to find they had shifted in sleep, Nathan's arm around her waist and her back pressed against his chest. It should have alarmed her, but instead, she felt only warmth and security. She fell back asleep and did not wake again until morning light filled the room. They did not speak of it directly, but something had shifted between them. The physical proximity, innocent as it had been, had broken down another barrier. In the days that followed, they stood closer when working together, hands touching briefly when passing tools or dishes, shoulders brushing when they sat together in the evenings. December brought colder weather and shorter days. The ranch work slowed somewhat, focused more on maintenance and caring for the animals than on the aggressive building and fence work of earlier months. Nathan and Zara spent more time indoors, and the main house felt increasingly like their shared space rather than his home and her workplace. One evening after dinner, as they sat by the fire, Nathan said quietly, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly without worrying about what you think I want to hear." "All right. Could you see yourself staying here permanently?" "Not as hired help, but as my wife and true partner in all this." Zara had known the question was coming, had felt it building for weeks. She took her time answering, wanting to speak from her heart rather than from fear or convenience. "Yes," she said finally. "I can see it. I think I have been seeing it for some time now, but I was afraid to admit it." "Afraid why?" "Because wanting something and having it work out are different things. Because I have already lost so much, and I was afraid to risk wanting something this much." Nathan reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers. "I am afraid too," he admitted. "Afraid I am not enough, that this place is not enough, that someday you will wish you had chosen a different path. But I am more afraid of not trying, of spending the rest of my life wondering what might have been if I had been brave enough to ask you to stay. You are asking now, I am asking now." He squeezed her hand gently. "Zara Zimmerman, will you marry me? Will you be my partner in building this ranch and this life? Will you take a chance on me and on what we might create together?" Tears pricked at Zara's eyes, surprising her with their suddenness. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." Nathan pulled her close, and she went willingly, burying her face against his shoulder while he held her tightly. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. "I did not plan that very well," Nathan said. "I meant to be more romantic, maybe ask when we were on horseback with the mountains in view or something memorable." "It was perfect," Zara assured him. "It was honest and real, which is better than any planned romance." They married 2 weeks later in the small Hachita church with their neighbors as witnesses. Mrs. Cooper cried openly and hugged them both afterward. The storekeeper provided a simple cake, and the small community gathered at the ranch for a celebration dinner that lasted well into the evening. That night, finally alone in their home, not his or hers, but theirs, Nathan carried Zara across the threshold of the bedroom with exaggerated ceremony that made them both laugh. "I think we might be married now," he said solemnly. "I believe you are correct." He set her down gently and took both her hands in his. "I want you to know that I will spend every day trying to be worthy of the trust you have given me." and I will do the same for you." Their wedding night was tender and sweet, filled with nervous laughter and gentle discovery. Afterward, lying in each other's arms, Zara felt something she had not experienced in years: hope. Not the desperate hope of someone with no options, but the bright, expansive hope of someone who could see a future worth reaching for. Winter settled over the ranch, bringing snow and cold but also a peaceful quiet. Nathan and Zara established rhythms as a married couple, learning each other's habits and preferences, negotiating the small conflicts that arose when two independent people tried to merge their lives. They argued occasionally, usually about ranch decisions, but they learned to discuss rather than fight, to seek compromise rather than victory. In the spring, they expanded the herd with Nathan's savings, purchasing 20 young heifers from a rancher near Silver City. The horse breeding program that Nathan had dreamed about became a reality when one of the mares produced a strong colt, and two more were confirmed pregnant. They planted a larger garden and built a chicken coop, adding eggs to their daily provisions. Zara discovered she was pregnant in June, nearly a year after she had first arrived in Hachita. She told Nathan one evening after dinner, unsure how he would react to the news. His face transformed with joy so pure it took her breath away. "A baby," he whispered, kneeling beside her chair and placing his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby. Are you pleased?" Pleased does not begin to cover it. He looked up at her with shining eyes. "This is everything I hoped for. Everything we have been building toward." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer and into fall. Zara continued working around the ranch until her growing belly made mounting a horse difficult, then focused on tasks closer to home. Mrs. Cooper and the other ranch wives visited regularly, bringing advice and baby clothes and the solidarity of women who understood the particular challenges of bearing children on the frontier. Nathan became increasingly protective, fretting over Zara's health and safety in ways that alternately touched and annoyed her. "I am pregnant, not dying," she reminded him when he tried to prevent her from lifting a basket of laundry. "I know, but I worry. You are precious to me. And you are precious to me, but we cannot stop living our lives because I am carrying a child." They compromised, with Zara agreeing to be more careful and Nathan agreeing to stop hovering quite so obviously. Their son arrived in February of 1880 during a brief warm spell between winter storms. Mrs. Cooper served as midwife, and the birth, while painful and exhausting, was mercifully quick. Nathan paced outside until Mrs. Cooper called him in to meet his child. "A son," Zara said tiredly, holding the squirming bundle. "We have a son." Nathan approached with the kind of reverence usually reserved for holy relics. He touched the baby's tiny hand with one finger, and the infant immediately grasped it with surprising strength. "He is perfect. You are both perfect." His voice broke, and tears streamed unashamedly down his face. They named him Noah, after Nathan's grandfather, and his middle name was Samuel, after Zara's father. Noah Barrett proved to be a healthy, hungry baby with powerful lungs, and a disposition that cycled between content sleepiness and furious demands for attention. The first months of parenthood were exhausting. Nathan took over most of the ranch work, hiring a drifter for temporary help with the spring cattle work. Zara focused on caring for Noah, though she resented the way her world had temporarily shrunk to feeding schedules and diaper changes. She loved her son fiercely, but she missed the outdoor work and the sense of partnership she and Nathan had developed. "I feel like I am losing myself," she confessed one evening when Noah finally slept, and Nathan found her crying at the kitchen table. He pulled her close. "You are not losing yourself. You are stretched thin and exhausted, which is different. Once Noah settles into a better rhythm, you will get back to the work you love. This is just a season, a very long season, but a temporary one." He kissed her forehead. "I am proud of you. I know this is not easy." As Noah grew and became more independent, Zara gradually returned to ranch work, carrying him in a sling while doing lighter tasks, then leaving him with Mrs. Cooper for short periods when heavier work called. Nathan proved to be a devoted father, taking Noah out to the barn and corrals, letting him watch while horses were trained or cattle were moved. The ranch continued to prosper. The horse breeding program exceeded expectations, with buyers coming from as far as Albuquerque to purchase their well-trained stock. The cattle herd grew to nearly 100 head, and they were able to hire a permanent ranch hand, a young man named James who proved reliable and hardworking. When Noah was 2, Zara discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the news brought more contentment than surprise. They felt ready for another child, and Noah was eager for a sibling, though he had little understanding of what that actually meant. Their daughter arrived in the fall of 1882, coming into the world with relative ease compared to Noah's birth. They named her Rose after Nathan's mother, and she proved to be a calmer baby than her brother, content to watch the world with solemn eyes. Life settled into a rich, full rhythm. The ranch demanded constant work, but provided steady returns. Noah and Rose grew, healthy and happy, learning to ride almost before they could walk. James married a girl from town, and Nathan helped him file a claim on adjacent land, ensuring they would have good neighbors and an ally in the often difficult work of frontier ranching. Zara sometimes thought back to that desperate day in Santa Fe when she had placed her advertisement, and then to the moment when she read Nathan's response. The boldness of his proposal, "Come be my partner," instead had changed everything. He had not offered her employment or rescue. He had offered equality and possibility. That partnership had grown into love, and then into this full, complicated, beautiful life they had built together. One evening, after the children were asleep, and they sat together on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of purple and gold, Nathan said, "Do you ever regret answering my letter?" "Never," Zara said without hesitation. "This life is not always easy, but it is ours. We built it together from nothing, and that means everything." "I love you," Nathan said simply. "I do not say it enough, but I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love you too. You gave me back my life when I thought it was over. You saw me as a partner when the world only saw a desperate woman looking for work. You offered me dignity and respect and a chance to build something that mattered. That was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear, their hands clasped together. Two people who had taken a chance on an unconventional partnership and discovered it was the foundation for everything they truly wanted. Years passed in steady progression. Noah grew tall and lean like his father, taking to ranch work with natural aptitude. Rose developed her mother's way with horses and spent hours in the corrals working with the young stock. 2 more children arrived, Samuel in 1885, and Anna in 1888, filling the ranch house with noise and laughter and the constant motion of family life. The ranch prospered beyond Nathan's initial dreams. They expanded to 500 acres, ran 200 head of cattle, and their horses developed a reputation throughout New Mexico territory for quality and training. James and his wife had children of their own, and their families celebrated holidays and milestones together, creating a community of support in the isolated grasslands. Hachita grew slowly, adding a proper school and another general store. The railroad brought more people and more opportunities. New Mexico moved steadily toward statehood, and Nathan served on the committee working to establish local government and law enforcement. Through it all, Zara and Nathan maintained the partnership that had begun with a letter and a bold proposal. They worked side by side, raising their children and building their ranch, facing droughts and diseases and difficult markets with united determination. They argued occasionally, disagreed on decisions, and struggled with the inevitable challenges of long-term marriage. But beneath everything was the fundamental respect and equality that Nathan had offered from the beginning. On their 15th wedding anniversary, in December of 1894, Nathan took Zara riding to a high point on their property where the view stretched for miles in every direction. They sat on their horses, surveying the land they had built into something substantial and lasting. "You remember when I asked you to be my partner instead of my employee," Nathan said. "Of course. It was the most audacious thing anyone has ever said to me. It was also the smartest thing I ever did. This partnership has been the foundation of everything good in my life." He reached over and took her hand. "Thank you for being brave enough to say yes. Thank you for asking." They rode back to the ranch as the sun set, arriving to find their children had conspired with James's family to create a surprise anniversary celebration. The house was filled with food and decorations, and their friends and neighbors had gathered to mark the occasion. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the children were finally asleep, Zara and Nathan stood together in their bedroom, the room where they had spent their first proper night together all those years ago. 15 years, Zara mused. It feels like both forever and no time at all. "I know what you mean." Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back against him. "I look at our children and this life we have built, and I cannot quite believe it all started with a newspaper advertisement and a letter. The best things often start in unexpected ways." "What do you think the next 15 years will bring?" Zara considered the question. Noah was 14 now, already talking about expanding the ranch even further. Rose at 12 showed signs of becoming an exceptional horse trainer. Samuel and Anna were still young but full of energy and curiosity. "I think we will raise our children to adulthood and send them out into the world to build their own lives. I think we will continue growing the ranch and being active in the community. I think we will get older and slower, but hopefully not too much slower. And I think we will still be partners through all of it." "That sounds perfect." The years that followed proved Zara's predictions accurate. Noah left briefly to study agriculture at the Territorial College, then returned to take on increasing responsibility at the ranch. Rose married a neighboring rancher's son, and they established their own horse breeding operation with Nathan and Zara's support. Samuel developed an interest in medicine and eventually left for medical school back east. Anna became a teacher at the Hachita school. Nathan and Zara gradually transitioned from active management to advisory roles, letting Noah take the lead on major decisions while they focused on the parts of ranch life they most enjoyed. Nathan spent more time with the horses, working with the young stock and refining their breeding program. Zara managed the household and garden and became something of a matriarch in the community, the woman that younger ranch wives came to for advice and support. They became grandparents when Rose had her first child in 1899, followed by Noah's marriage and children in quick succession. The ranch house that had once seemed large enough began to feel small when filled with children and grandchildren during holidays and celebrations. New Mexico achieved statehood in 1912, a moment Nathan and Zara celebrated with their entire extended family gathered at the ranch. They were in their 50s now, both weathered by decades of frontier life, but still vital and engaged. Their partnership had lasted through everything the West could throw at them: drought, disease, economic downturns, personal losses, and the countless small trials that tested any long-term relationship. One evening, sitting together on the porch as they had done thousands of times before, watching another spectacular sunset, Nathan said quietly, "I have been thinking about that first letter a lot lately. What about it? About how desperate I was when I wrote it. I had tried everything I could think of to find someone to share this life with, and nothing had worked. I saw your advertisement and just thought, what if I am honest about what I really want? What if I offer partnership instead of the usual arrangement?" He paused, then continued, "I never imagined how completely you would transform everything. This life, this ranch, these children and grandchildren, none of it would exist without you saying yes to that crazy proposal." Zara squeezed his hand. "We built it together. That is what partnership means. Neither of us could have done this alone." "No, but together we did something remarkable." "We did," she agreed. "We really did." As the sun disappeared below the horizon and the first stars appeared, they sat together in the gathering darkness. Two people who had taken a chance on an unconventional beginning and discovered it was the start of something extraordinary. The ranch spread around them, solid and prosperous, built on the foundation of their partnership and filled with the generations that partnership had created. The advertisement had asked for employment. The response had offered partnership. The result had been a love story that spanned decades, a family that flourished, and a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. It had started with boldness and faith, with two people willing to risk conventional expectations for something more honest and real. And it had become more than either of them could have imagined on that day when a desperate woman in Santa Fe read a letter from a lonely rancher in Hachita and decided to take a chance on what he was offering. Years later, when Zara and Nathan were well into their 60s and their children were middle-aged with families of their own, someone asked Zara what the secret was to a successful marriage. She thought about it for a long moment before answering. "Start with respect," she said finally. "Nathan offered me partnership before he offered love. He saw me as an equal before he saw me as a wife. Everything else grew from that foundation. We worked side by side, made decisions together, supported each other's dreams. The love came because we were partners first." It was an unconventional answer, perhaps, but then their entire relationship had been unconventional from the start. And that unconventionality had been their greatest strength, allowing them to build something that lasted not just years but decades, not just for themselves, but for the generations that followed. When Nathan passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1922 at the age of 73, Zara grieved deeply, but without regret. They had lived a full life together, longer than many couples were blessed to share. She continued living on the ranch, surrounded by children and grandchildren, until her own peaceful death in 1927. The ranch itself continued for many more generations, always in the Barrett family, a testament to what two people built when they started with partnership and let love grow from there. The original house still stood, preserved and cherished, and family lore never forgot the story of how it all began with an advertisement for employment and a response that changed everything. "Come be my partner instead." Those 5 words had been the foundation of everything that followed, a proposal that honored both parties' dignity and recognized that the best relationships are built on equality and mutual respect. It was a love story, yes, but it was also a partnership story, and that partnership was what made the love not just possible but enduring. The land Nathan and Zara had claimed and built into something substantial remained in the family for over a century. Through good times and bad, through changes and challenges that they never could have predicted. But the foundation they established of respect, partnership, and shared purpose proved strong enough to carry their legacy forward through all of it. And it all started because a desperate woman placed an advertisement, and a lonely man saw an opportunity to be honest about what he truly needed. Not a housekeeper or a wife in name only, but a true partner to share the enormous task of building something lasting in an untamed land. That honesty, that boldness, that willingness to ask for what he really wanted rather than settling for convention, that was what made all the difference. Their story became part of family lore, passed down through generations, always told with pride and wonder. Great-grandchildren who never knew them personally still heard about Zara's courage in traveling alone to meet a stranger, and Nathan's wisdom in offering partnership before romance. The values they lived by: hard work, honesty, mutual respect, and shared purpose became embedded in the family culture, influencing how their descendants approached their own relationships and challenges. In the end, the advertisement that Zara placed in desperation and Nathan's audacious response became more than just the beginning of a marriage. They became the foundation of a family, a ranch, and a legacy that demonstrated what was possible when two people approached each other as equals, built together with shared purpose, and let love grow from the solid ground of respect and partnership. The Barrett Ranch stood as proof that the best partnerships are chosen deliberately, built consciously, and maintained through decades of daily choice and commitment. Nathan and Zara had chosen each other when both were at low points, had built something remarkable together, and had maintained their partnership through all the challenges and triumphs that life brought them. Their story was the kind that inspired others to believe that love and partnership, honestly pursued, could create something that lasted not just a lifetime but for generations. And so the ranch continued, the family grew, and the legacy of that first bold proposal, "Come be my partner instead," lived on in the lives and relationships of everyone who came after. It was a fitting monument to two people who had dared to do things differently, and discovered that different, in their case, meant better. The ranch land still echoed with their presence, the values they lived by, and the love they built together, one day and one shared task at a time, for over 40 years of partnership that began with an advertisement and a letter that changed two lives forever.